Good day all, welcome to a Monday Mardle. I've not done one of these since the opening weeks of the season, I think, but given there's been no action for 3 months, it's probably stirred me into action with one of these. Welcome to my garden. You can probably hear my little boys running around with their lawnmowers, so good to know that they're being put to good use while they're here, obviously. So interesting times, of course. It's a really big week for English football. The Premier League returns on Wednesday. Norwich City are back in action on Friday. They then have 9 games in the space of 5.5 weeks, as well as an FA Cup run to continue with. They've, of course, got a quarter-final against Manchester United at Carrow Road. So, and of course, so much of it will be about how football looks in terms of behind closed doors and the various new guys that the Premier League will take on, alongside, of course, all the same issues over promotion, relegation, players in form, out of form, injuries, and all the usual stuff. So it's going to be quite a curious time, I think, for all of us involved in terms of how we're covering it and things like that. But I would be lying if I said there wasn't an element of me that is really excited about it. About it coming back and then what it looks like and how we get to deal with that. So hopefully you feel the same as well. The biggest news for Norwich City probably in terms of the build-up happened on Saturday night, where they had their first positive coronavirus COVID-19 test. That's their first positive test inside the camp at any point. So there were obviously various tests and maybe suspected cases earlier on in the year. So you're looking at sort of towards the start, just before lockdown. But that test that took place and was confirmed, well, the test took place on Thursday. The result was confirmed on Friday evening after Norwich's friendly at Tottenham. And the player who hasn't been named as yet, although it may well be that they reveal themselves who they are, because it's, to be perfectly honest, it's their own business and no one else's. So we may get confirmation. They may confirm that over the coming day or so. But so far it's unnamed, and they did play against Tottenham. So what we have now is a live situation where everything the Premier League has put in place in terms of players' safety, in terms of not needing to self-isolate, just the positive case. That's all because of the social distancing and the minimising of contact between players. It's all there to make sure that you don't get an entire squad isolating if there is a positive case. Now, of course, Norwich's latest round of testing was today. They should get the results for those tomorrow. It'll be the same for Spurs. Their testing, I think, was today. It could possibly be tomorrow, and so the confirmation may differ slightly, but we will essentially know the impact of one positive test on 2 squads that played just a few hours before that result was known. It's a live situation in terms of just how safe, I guess, the Premier League restart is. It would take a lot of positive tests to get games abandoned. I think that is what has been introduced in the protocol. I wouldn't be able to say to you how much the protocol is about making sure football returns as opposed to keeping everyone safe. I think that's obviously a live debate in itself, but we'll watch all of that with interest. What we do know is that the player who did test positive for Norwich, they will have to self-isolate, and they are currently self-isolating for 7 days. After that point, they will then have to have a negative test to return to training, and of course then be considered fit enough to play. So possibly they could be involved in the Everton game, which is on Wednesday night, but I would imagine it's sincerely, highly unlikely they will be anywhere near the game against Southampton. I don't think that's physically possible with when 7 days kicks in and all testing and all that sort of stuff. So assume they will not feature against Southampton. The good news is that the player is asymptomatic. The positive result was a surprise to them, and of course, their fitness and health is the most important thing. The one thing I will add as well, Norwich City's only way of surviving in the Premier League now, realistically, is to complete the season, play their fixtures and do the business on the pitch. If the first round of fixtures is essentially the games that are in hand. After that, it does become a lot more easier to argue that the season, if it is curtailed, is done so on PPG, so which is points per game as an average. So Norwich will get relegated if the season doesn't complete, I would imagine, and they are in the bottom 3 at that point. I find it hard, given what the EFL have done, for that to be anything different. So Norwich's best chance of surviving is to play on. So if you've got a conspiracy theory over the fact that Norwich are binning it off, have a word with yourself, to be honest. Norwich did win against Spurs. It was quite a positive result, of course. Now, it is effectively a pre-season. I hate pre-season. I certainly hate looking at results. Norwich were behind for long spells in the game before turning it around in the final minutes of a 120-minute game, by which point both teams had made changes. But certainly in terms of grabbing positivity from it, then everyone should do that. And it bodes well that Norwich clearly have the fitness to carry on and those sort of things. So the key thing is they've got 2 games where they do have a really good opportunity to kind of stamp their mark on things and set a narrative for these final 9 games. A quick start, 2 victories. They get 48 hours more recovery time than Everton, who play Liverpool in their first game back on Sunday, whereas Norwich play on Friday. So there's a lot there, and Everton do have a couple of injuries as well. So there's a lot there that does at least give the impression that Norwich are in a decent state maybe going into these first 2 games. And let's be brutally honest, if they can win them both, it puts them in a great position just to put a lot of pressure on everyone. That is, of course, different to what they've done all season, winning back-to-back games like that. But this isn't normal, is it? So we just don't know, and it would be wrong really to write anything off. But clearly, the first game is very important in terms of setting the tone for everything. Not confirmed, and I don't know this. I don't know where this is at the moment, but certainly I believe Grant Hanley does have a hamstring injury that is a scare for whether he will be involved. I don't know how serious it is, and it could be an issue. We were kind of hoping that Norwich would have 4 centre-backs available for the first time this season, now that Tim Closer is back. And actually the suspension helped Christoph Zimmermann be fit too. But I'm kind of getting the impression that maybe Grant might not be available. We will have to see. I hope he is, obviously, because he was in great form before the lockdown. So we will see. But it does kind of back this suggestion that I don't think Norwich will try and venture around 3 at the back. If anything, I think they will try and do as much as possible to get wins and get goals. So it would be good if they can take, because they've not only had an issue creating chances before the break, so it would be good if they're able to take those with better profligacy. Is that the right word? I don't think it is, but be more clinical in front of goal is what I'm trying to say. If they can do that on the restart, then that would serve them really well going forwards. So yeah, I hope that I will be at Carrow Road for the games. I don't know what the deal is going to be covering games away from Carrow Road. Clearly there's a really strict limit on how many people are allowed inside a ground, and I'm not talking about the press there. Well, certainly not just the press. I'm talking about club personnel, everyone really. So we will see how that pans out. Rest assured, I'll be watching all the games and I'll be giving you my insight as best as I can. I'll be doing some video reports, and of course, as has been the case throughout the suspension, I'll be writing at The Athletic. There will be a code in the notes which will get you a 40% discount on your on a subscription if you wish to take one out. We've had loads of fun on the On The Ball podcast throughout the lockdown. We've spoken to some great people who have been at Norwich City about their time at the club. There are lots of stories I've really enjoyed putting together, like an all history of the 7-1 defeat to Colchester and Norwich's FA Youth Cup winning run of 2013. I've spoken exclusively to Carlton Morris and Louis Thompson about their time so far, and Louis especially dealing with injuries. Really good, really open and honest conversation with him, and you hope it all comes good. It's worth reiterating, those players whose seasons out on loan have ended, they can't now join in with Norwich's season. Likewise, Sam McCullum and Danel Sinani, they are not registered, so they'll have to wait until the next season begins to be registered, and we will of course now find out which division that will be for Norwich. But it's going to be a lot of fun hopefully along the way to find out. But I think for this, my Mardle is done. The Athletic awaits, so get involved and have a look if you haven't. There are lots of ways to at least have a look at what it is, and I'm sure if you fancy it, you'll really enjoy it. Have a lovely week. I will keep you up to date on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and all those sort of things. But until we get to speak to Daniel Farker on Thursday, I hope you all keep well, keep safe, and Friday will be here before we all know it. How exciting.